You might remember a few weeks ago, 7:30 aired a disturbing story about life in the former Aboriginal mission of Toomelah. It's hard to believe the place exists in a first world country like Australia. Living conditions are appalling, employment is non-existent, drug and alcohol abuse is off the scale, and crime is higher than ever. Tonight, 7:30 explores the failure of police and community services to stop child sex abuse in Toomelah. We'll hear from the minister responsible shortly, but first Caro Meldrum-Hanna reports.
Alice HAINES is fiercely protective of her youngest daughter. That's because she knows what can happen to children if they aren't protected.
No. The trauma that happens to a child, because I've lived that trauma, is phenomenal. And for myself to actually sit here and tell my story today, I cannot believe I'm actually doing it. I think it's a miracle in itself that I've even got sanity on my side.
Alice HAINES' trauma occurred far away from her new home here in Canberra. It began when she was the same age as her baby girl, when she was living on and off in the former Aboriginal mission of Toomelah in far northwestern New South Wales. 7:30 visited Toomelah last month, recording the acute community dysfunction.
And we do need help, a lot of help. But mainly, I reckon the main concern is like the young ones. They need help big time.
Below the ages of, 5 that have actually been raped. Physically raped.
Alice HAINES contacted us after watching our story. She is still haunted by her childhood in Toomelah.
Yeah, as a child, I had experienced being sexually abused by many men. Being sodomised since you're like 2 years of age or however young you are, I can't believe it can get any worse than that. To me, that's the pitfall. That's ridiculously, pathetically damaging.
And she says the abuse is still going on back in Toomelah.
Surely there's people that know the signs of sexual abuse, and if anyone could have been helpful, then we should be removed from our environment. I believe that I probably should have been removed.
7:30 went searching for answers. We eventually tracked down DEBORAH SYKES, a former DOCS child protection officer. Although she and her colleagues were based in Moree, they were more often in Toomelah.
Most of the alleged allegations ranged from fondling, touching, to full-blown sexual assault. You'd report your findings back to who you were responsible to, and unfortunately sometimes then you just had to let it go, which was very hard.
It's a job made even harder by the unwillingness of victims and their families to mention the abuse.
If the children say something, they're not believed, and so therefore it creates an ongoing thing, sort of why say something, I'm not believed. And unfortunately I think that some, and I think this is horrendous, but I think some believe it's the norm. They don't know any different. It's really, really sad.
You walked away from
Yes,
the
I
job.
did.
Why?
Because I had a breakdown. And just too much.
Successive governments have known about the violence, neglect and sexual abuse occurring inside Toomelah for at least 25 years. You say you were there to protect children. Do you think you succeeded?
No. I did my job to the best of my ability. But there are always kids that would fall through the system regardless of what you tried to do. Sorry.
Finally, in June 2006, the New South Wales government sent a special DOCS task force to Toomelah. Instead of the sporadic DOCS visits of the past, the task force worked in Toomelah every day. Its results were assessed in a 2008 commission of inquiry.
Case study, communities of Toomelah and Boggabilla. A Toomelah resident said that the presence of the DOCS worker made a great deal of difference in terms of people taking responsibility for their kids and making sure that they are safer and getting people to look at the issue. Most agencies expressed concern to the inquiry that it would be detrimental to the community for it not to continue.
But the Toomelah task force was already doomed. 7:30 can reveal that 4 months before the inquiry handed down its findings, the Director-General of Community Services had decided to withdraw the task force, setting a removal date of June 2010. All up, it only operated for 4 years.
If it was working, why pull it off? Why pull it out? Obviously, while they were there must have been some positive things happening, whereas now there certainly aren't.
Today, 7:30 is told that no one even bothers reporting the abuse to the local police anymore. New South Wales Police gave us this written response.
The State Crime Command's Child Abuse Squad has made inquiries within the community to see what opportunities exist to investigate any child abuse matters. However, no one has come forward or disclosed any matters to police. Previous reports to New South Wales Police have been investigated.
How would you describe then the policing of Toomelah?
Lazy.
Paul Underhill is the Defence Solicitor at the Aboriginal Legal Service in Moree. In the year he's been in the job, he says he hasn't seen one police prosecution for child sexual assault in Toomelah.
Oh, yeah. Nothing's done, and it won't until people come forward. And, we're back to the cycle. People aren't going to come forward unless they know there are police officers there that they can trust. I've acted for young persons, young offenders, on 2 occasions who have asked me not to bother applying for bail because they felt safer in juvenile detention than... So I think that's a kind of a sad thing.
Well, is that acceptable?
Of course it's not acceptable. I mean, how could it ever be acceptable? How could anybody accept that? For heaven's sake.